Hello, and thank you for joining us for the Section 6 portion of preparing for the SACSCOC on-site peer review visit, Principles Accreditation Standards Reviews for Interviews. These are some important dates to save. So our on-site review will occur March 25th through the 28th, with interviews primarily occurring in the afternoon of March 26th and the morning of Wednesday, March 27th. The exit interview or exit session will be on Thursday, March 28th at the hotel meeting room. In December 2024, we'll find out the final results of the Affirmation of Reaccreditation presented at SACSCOC annual meeting in Austin, Texas. The purpose of the on-site reaffirmation visit is that our peer reviewers, those members of the reaffirmation committee, will come visit A&M Commerce to validate and review our compliance with the SACSCOC principles of accreditation. This is done through the review of compliance reports, such as the reaffirmation compliance certification submitted in September and the focus report submitted in February, touring the campus, conducting interviews, and touring off-campus instructional sites. They will also review the Quality Enhancement Plan, or QEP. As a reminder, the mission statement for A&M Commerce is Educate, Discover, Achieve. Moving on to talk specifically about the QEP, this comes from Standard 7.2, which states that the institution has a Quality Enhancement Plan, or QEP, that A, has a topic identified through ongoing comprehensive planning and evaluation processes, has broad-based support of institutional constituencies, focuses on improving specific student learning outcomes or student success metrics, commits resources to initiate, implement, and complete the QEP, and includes a plan to assess achievement of the QEP. The Quality Enhancement Plan is an integral component of reaffirmation accreditation and is derived from ongoing comprehensive planning and evaluation processes at the institution. It reflects and affirms a commitment to enhancing overall institutional quality and effectiveness by focusing on an issue that we consider important to improving or increasing learning outcomes or student success. Our Quality Enhancement Plan is titled Foundation for Your Future and is a career management and career preparation focused QEP for students at A&M Commerce. I'm not going to read through these items exhaustively, but you'll notice the language here is reflected in the standard. And so this is from the SACSCOC resource manual, rationale and notes, and it includes some brief explanation of each of these items and what it means for our institution. I encourage you to read through these more closely, as well as the resource manual, rationale notes for the specific standards that you might be asked to speak to. The QEP is a three-phase QEP. Phase 1 is titled Foundation. This provides students with a solid career foundation as they begin college, and it's going to look at occurring and embedded general education courses and lower level courses in each major. So again, this QEP is open and accessible to all students at the institution across all programs, regardless of location or modality of education. Appropriate assessments and activities will occur at Phase 1 Foundation. Phase 2 is Framework, and this builds upon the solid foundation established with a framework that provides students with skills, content, and competencies for a successful future, and preparing students for the possibility of a Plan B. So let's say the students come to A&M Commerce, sure that they want to be a teacher, and they begin their education courses and realizing that working with students maybe is not for them. The framework phase will help students pivot and prepare for another major or a Plan B for their careers. We're looking here at major specific courses and mid-level major courses, again, across all programs within the colleges at the university, and appropriate assessments and activities will occur outside of coursework and classrooms. Phase 3 is titled Capstone. This is the final phase, and is designed to launch students successfully into their careers at the synthesis of prior learning from the foundation and framework phase. Curricular activities at this stage will include capstone courses and integral learning experiences such as internships, clinicals, practicums, and teaching experiences where students will actually be able to demonstrate and practice those skills. Again, appropriate assessments and activities will be taking place as non-curricular activities for this phase of the QEP. Some additional information on the QEP is, as said before, we're looking at including courses in each major. So this is applicable to all students across all programs in the colleges of the institution. Looking at developing a non-academic micro-credential for the QEP titled Career Ready that would represent the completion of non-academic activities for the QEP. Non-curricular activities will be organized and offered through the Office of Student Career Preparedness with Arthur Lumsey. There will be a data focus on our first generation students, so first-time, full-time, first-gen students. So even though this QEP is open and applicable to all students at all levels across the university, the data focus will be on first generation students. We're also looking at developing a mentorship program between first generation faculty and staff or other faculty and staff and first generation students. If you're asked about the QEP or if you want some things to think of over the QEP, questions and things to consider is to ask yourself, are the assessment plans robust and reasonable? Are there sufficient institutional resources? And if yes, what are they? What form does faculty involvement take with the QEP, and how will learning or achievement be assessed in the QEP? If you would like additional information on these questions or the QEP in general, please reach out to Dr. Eric Branscombe, who is our QEP director. The Department of Education has 20 unique standards that they will be asking faculty and staff on campus about, regardless of whether or not we are found to be in compliance with them. They vary from standard 5.4, which is qualified administrative and academic officers, to standard 14.4, which is representation to other agencies, and cover everything in between. We had 18 findings of non-compliance with our standards, which went from 2.1 institutional mission to standard 13.8 institutional environment. You will notice in the next slide, there's overlap between the Department of Education standards and findings of non-compliance for a total of 30 standards that have been identified or potentially identified for interviews. These are hyperlinked to the specific standards within the PowerPoint as well. So specifically for section 6, which is going to be looking at standards 6.1, 6.2a, 6.2b, 6.2c, 6.3, and 6.4, which primarily deal with faculty. We start with standard 6.1. The institution employs a sufficient number of full-time faculty members to support the mission and goals of the institution. Please note that it is a core requirement as noted by CR. The SACSCOC resource manual rationale notes include that achievement of the institution's mission with respect to teaching, research, and service requires a critical mass of full-time qualified faculty to provide direction and oversight of academic programs. Due to this significant role, it's imperative that an effective system evaluation be put in place for all faculty members that address the institution's obligation to foster intellectual freedom of faculty to teach, serve, research, and publish. Full-time faculty work may be supplemented and enhanced by assignment of professional staff, part-time faculty, and GTAs, whose qualifications broaden and enrich curriculum, increase learning opportunities, and enhance the mission of the institution. In our compliance certification, we discuss the number of full-time faculty members at A&M Commerce and how it is adequate to support the mission of the institution, which is educate, discover, achieve. The university's vision is to provide students with a transformative education while advancing knowledge, serving an inclusive community, and fostering collaboration. Our faculty members are hired to support this mission and the university strategic priorities and goals that help direct faculty towards the mission. The compliance certification went on to define faculty roles and responsibilities in line with published institutional procedures and discuss faculty responsibility and workload, as well as the count of full-time faculty compared to part-time faculty. Strategic hiring plans and dedication of faculty lines following review by the Budget Review and Developmental Council were highlighted, along with the 2017 athletic fee and use. Some questions or things to consider if you're asked about standard 6.1. As do you feel there are sufficient faculty members to support the mission goals of the institution? What are the definition of terms such as full-time, part-time, regular, or permanent faculty in the student-faculty ratio? How does the mission of the institution affect the number and type of faculty employed? What processes does the institution use to determine the number of full-time faculty needed to achieve the mission? What is the institutional policy on full-time faculty workload, and how are overloads managed? So speaking to this, as someone who oversees this work or as someone who's part of this work, you might consider these questions and how your answer to them might shape our findings of compliance. Standard 6.2a, for each of its educational programs, the institution justifies and documents the qualifications of its faculty members. In the SACSCOC resource manual rationale and notes, it notes that qualified effective faculty members are essential to carrying out the mission of the institution and ensuring quality and integrity of academic programs. The emphasis is on overall qualifications of a faculty member rather than simply academic credentials. Determining the acceptability of faculty qualifications requires judicious use of professional judgment, especially when persons do not hold degrees in the teaching discipline or are qualified based on criteria other than their academic credentials. In our compliance certification, we know that A&M Commerce is dedicated to ensuring appropriate faculty qualifications are reviewed and justified to accomplish the mission of the institution, and provided a faculty roster that included those qualifications for all faculty that taught or were instructor of record in fall of 22 and spring of 23. The institution's qualification requirements for certain positions that are documented in procedures, such as the hiring, the HR hiring guidelines, and also relies on the SACSCOC faculty credentialing guidelines documents for guidance. If you would like more information or an explanation of the faculty credentialing guideline document, please do not hesitate to reach out and I will share that with you. Again, faculty qualifications for instructor of record for fall 22 and spring 23 were provided and reviewed in the faculty roster. In the SACSCOC findings of non-compliance, it was noted that additional faculty qualification and justifications for certain positions that were identified and requested by the reviewers were requested along with administrative revisions to the categorization of undergraduate programs in the roster. The categorization of undergraduate programs in the roster was resolved in the resubmitted faculty roster. And our focus report response also included additional information on the faculty members and qualifications of concern, recent additions to the HR hiring procedure and guidelines document, and the creation of the guidelines for validating instructor credentials document, assisted in making the case for compliance. It is included that department heads are still expected to use the faculty credential inventory or FCI and relevant resources to document and justify qualifications of new hire or changes in faculty appointment. When we're looking at the standard, if you are asked about this, again, these questions are not exhaustive and there may be questions posed to you about these standards that we have not thought of or come up with. Some things to think through is how does the mission of the institution influence the selection and qualifications of faculty? Again, our mission is educate, discover, achieve. How does that influence the faculty? How does the institution determine competencies of faculty members and justify their qualifications to meet those competencies? And how does the institution document and justify qualifications for each faculty member? We use a system called SideTracks to document and provide justification on qualifications, as well as review of the faculty credential inventory form by the colleges at the time of submission. They go on to ask, would a reasonable person find this documentation and justification acceptable? Standard 6.2b, this was a finding of non-compliance and a Department of Education standard, and states that for each of its educational programs, the institution employs a sufficient number of full-time faculty members to ensure curriculum and program quality, integrity, and review. So again, we're looking at a sufficient number of full-time faculty. In the SACSCOC Resource Manual Rationale and Notes, it states when an institution commits to offering specific academic programs, there's an expectation that it also provides sufficient faculty resources to maintain quality and integrity of the programs. In addition to teaching, full-time faculty provide academic services such as curriculum design, development, evaluation, identification, and assessment of learning outcomes, advising, student advising, research, creative activity, instructional, professional service. So it goes on to note that above and beyond teaching, full-time faculty provide other services and support to the institution. In our compliance certification, we provided information on the oversight and organization of academic programs within the colleges and under the department heads. We provided information over full-time and part-time faculty appointments, as well as faculty responsibility for curriculum and program quality, integrity, and review. There is a discussion of the A&M Commerce prioritization and focus on teaching, specifically that it provides a transformative education which allows students to discover and achieve. It also discussed the sufficiency of full-time faculty for A&M Commerce's academic programs that can be demonstrated by a review of program delivery, but disaggregated by how programs are delivered, looking at the number of semester credit hours or SCH that was generated by full-time and part-time faculty by discipline. Tables were included for undergraduate and graduate SCH generation for full-time, part-time faculty, as well as a deeper dive into certain undergraduate or graduate programs whose percentage of full-time instruction fell under a certain threshold. There was also a discussion of the non-instructional workload and assignment of RSCA, or Research Scholarly Creative Activities, that faculty perform for the institution. The SACSCOC offsite review findings and noncompliance included that the documentation and the compliance certification did not include staffing program by data, only by department. So they were requesting disaggregation by program. It went on to say that without clear documentation of the number of full-time faculty per program, employment of a sufficient number of full-time faculty members could not be determined, and that data provided did not include a breakdown of number of those faculty per program versus number of part-time faculty per program. So, in our focus report response, we worked to submit a table that provided that data by program. And so we went through by college tables of full-time and part-time faculty, semester credit hour production were shared, with more extensive explanation of the programs or departments with those unusual full-time or part-time ratios or breakdowns. And then specific departments and or college tables were provided for areas to demonstrate faculty sufficiency at the undergraduate level and graduate level taught by full-time faculty. For the standards and questions or things to consider is how does the institution define full-time and part-time faculty? How does the organizational structure of academic units affect how faculty are involved in program delivery? What are the responsibilities of those faculty members, and do they constitute a sufficient resource for carrying out basic faculty functions within academic programs? What is the role of full-time faculty in program oversight and supervision? And if applicable, what is their role in delivering programs off campus or via distance education modalities? This would include, for instance, A&M Commerce at Dallas, our RELIS location, or Call-in Higher Education Center location, or online through competency-based education. How do mission expectations regarding research and public service affect the use of and need for full-time faculty in different programs? And are there special programs to strengthen part-time faculty and graduate assistants involvement in pedagogy? So what additional support is provided for part-time faculty or GTAs? Looking at standard 6.2c, again, this is an area of noncompliance as well as a Department of Education standard. So it states for each of its educational programs, the institution assigns appropriate responsibility for program coordination. In the SACSCOC resource manual rationale and notes, it notes that because student learning is central to the institution's mission and educational degrees, the faculty have responsibility for directing learning enterprise, including overseeing and coordinating educational programs to ensure each contains essential curricular components, has appropriate content and pedagogy, and maintains discipline currency. By requiring the institution assigns appropriate responsibility, there's an expectation that that person responsible for overseeing curricular content is qualified in the field and appropriate in that content. So it's looking at the alignment of the program coordinator with the level and material covered in the program. Our compliance certification addressed how A&M Commerce assigns responsibility for program coordination for all undergraduate and graduate degree programs to persons academically qualified in the field, as well as a review of appropriate policies and procedures, such as the academic department head and program coordinator appointment and responsibilities procedure. A large table that included the roles and responsibilities of department heads and program coordinators was included and discussed, as well as identification by program of those coordinators. There was a single finding of noncompliance where additional information on a program coordinator was requested and provided. So as we look at the questions and things to consider for standard 6.2c program coordination, it might include how does the organizational structure of academic units affect the assignment of appropriate responsibility for program coordination? Do coordinators have qualifications appropriate for that degree level? Again, looking at the level of education for those coordinators, as well as alignment of those degrees with what's being taught within that program. And what institutional policies and procedures govern or oversee program coordination and their credentials. As referenced earlier, we do have a department head and program coordinator procedure, and then how are those used and tracked? Looking at standard 6.3, the institution publishes and implements policies regarding appointment, employment, and regular evaluation of faculty members, regardless of contract or tenure status. So this is looking at all ranks in tenure track, tenured and non-tenured faculty. In the SACSCOC resource manual rationale and notes, it says that since members of faculty direct the learning enterprise of an academic institution and are responsible for ensuring quality of those programs, it's imperative the institution maintains an effective system of appointing faculty members, continuing those faculty members in employment, and evaluating the quality of their work, as well as, if necessary, discontinuing faculty. Appropriately approved processes should be in place, and we should be able to demonstrate that we consistently follow our policies and procedures. Policies relating to appointment of faculty would cover areas such as search processes, who has the authority to make offers of employment, and how contractual relationships are established. And this would relate to standard 6.4, academic freedom, as well as covering other items such as dismissal processes, workload, faculty instruction, etc. In our compliance certification, we say that consistent with institutional procedures, A&M Commerce is an equal opportunity employer based also on the TMUS Regulation 33.9901 employment practices. We also shared information on hiring procedures, guidelines, and documents from HR that helps inform and guide the hiring process of faculty members, regardless of rank and tenure. And then we included the faculty evaluation process and timeline, as well as redacted examples of some faculty evaluations vary by rank and tenure status. Findings of noncompliance for the standard included that though we published appointment, employment, and evaluation policies and procedures, they were clearly articulated policies that were implemented and overseen by human resources. Documentation shows regular evaluation of teaching faculty at all contractual level from tenure track to lecturers and adjuncts. Employment evaluations, were conducted annually using specific criteria differentiated by employment type, and weighted requirements are clearly presented. However, it goes on to say that while multiple hiring documents were provided to reflect the hiring process, all the documents provided reflected tenure or tenure track hires, and so they would like to have seen non-tenure track faculty lines. And the focus report response examples of those hiring process detailed step by step for non-tenure track faculty were provided in a table format. Some questions or things to consider when we're looking at this standard is, what are the policies regarding appointment, employment, and evaluation of faculty? How are these policies developed and approved? How are the policies disseminated to ensure personnel are informed? Are evaluations administered on a regular and timely basis, at least every 3 years, and where are these stored? We do provide or assess through an annual process as required by our internal policies. How does the institution ensure that faculty evaluation policies are appropriate for faculty members with different contractual statuses? Again, that looks at tenured, tenure track, non-tenured, adjunct, GA, part-time, etc. And how are faculty evaluations administered and used and ensuring the effectiveness of all faculty while also ensuring fairness? So discussion on the processes and equity or equitability would be appropriate for this standard. Finally, looking at standard 6.4, the institution publishes and implements appropriate policies and procedures for preserving and protecting academic freedom. The SACSCOC Resource Manual Rationale Notes includes that the essential role of institutions of higher education is the pursuit and dissemination of knowledge. Academic freedom respects the dignity and rights of others while fostering intellectual freedom of faculty to teach, research, and publish. Responsible academic freedom enriches the contributions of higher education to society. In our compliance certification submitted in September, we stated that academic freedom is critical to the fulfillment of the mission of Texas A&M University Commerce to educate, discover, achieve. So we drew a strong alignment between our mission and academic freedom. Examples of institution procedure in the faculty handbook, which discuss academic freedom, were provided as evidence to support the statement. And the role of the faculty ombuds office and the faculty senate in academic freedom were also discussed and highlighted, as was the importance of academic governance at our institution. In the findings of noncompliance, SACSCOC stated that regarding implementation of these policies, the off-site reaffirmation could not find evidence related to the disposition of instances in which issues involving academic freedom have emerged, nor did we indicate that no such cases have arisen. It went on to state that the compliance certification states that Rule 12.0199R1, academic freedom and responsibility, supplants the statewide university system policy, but did not address the ways in which it did. Further, there was no evidence of how this rule was approved. So in our focus report, we clarified how the rule was approved with relevant internal and external approving bodies in accordance with A&M System Policy 1.01, System Policies and Regulations, and Member Rules and Procedures, while demonstration of this approval was shared through a routing slip from the Office of Compliance. The word supplant was clarified in its non-use in the submitted narrative, and clarified that the A&M Commerce policy supports and complements the A&M system policy and does not override it. And then additional clarification was provided that no instances or concerns related to academic freedom had occurred since the last reaffirmation in 2014. When we're looking at the standards and questions or things to consider that you might be prepared to discuss is how does the institution define academic freedom? What are institutional policies and procedures for safeguarding, protecting academic freedom of faculty? And what is the role of faculty and policy program modification? Finally, if there had been instances in which issues involving academic freedom had emerged, how were those resolved and what were the roles of those bodies within resolving them? Thank you so much for your time and watching this video and preparing for our successful SACSCOC reaffirmation. Genuinely, our work and the success of reaffirmation is due to your work every day and your role here at the university. If you have any questions, if you would like more information on SACSCOC, reaffirmation, or these specific principles, please do not hesitate to reach out to myself or Dr. Ricky Dobbs, and we are more than happy to meet with you and discuss whatever would be helpful. Have a wonderful day.